This is pretty gross. You got to check this out. Ultra processed foods are turning human thighs into what looks like a marbled steak. You're not going to believe this. This is an MRI scan of a woman's thighs. Her diet was 80% ultra processed foods, mainly comprised of cold cereals, chocolate candy and candy bars, regular soft drinks, and bottled sugary drinks. Yikes. Can you even imagine? When they say you are what you eat, well, she definitely is what she eats. I know that sounds really icky, especially can you imagine somebody's inner thighs actually looking like that? But you probably walk through the mall or a grocery store and actually seen those people who probably look like that. I want to introduce to you Kim Bright, the founder of Brightcore. She's been on the show a number of times, and she's been helping Americans get healthy for 50 years. So Kim, you got to tell me, please explain to me why this woman's thighs look like a bad cattle, bad piece of steak.
Yeah, you don't want to get your fork and knife out and start in there. Yuck. I mean, really, when we think typically about fat, we're thinking about the fat that we see, like a big beer belly or flabby arms when women wear, sleeveless dresses and they look like they're getting ready to take off for flight. And then we got the thighs. But, there's a lot of the fat that's affecting our health that's not even visible, Barry. That's called visceral fat. Mm-hmm. And that's the fat that is so bad for us, that surrounds our organs. It's got so many serious health implications, and we've known about that for a long time. But there's new research that's just come out about a different kind of fat, and it also has very serious implications for our health. And it's something that we all need to know about and talk about. Now, if you see muscle that looks firm and strong from the outside, its internal structure is not apparent to the human eye, of course. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is something called intramuscular fat and intermuscular fat builds up slowly inside our muscle tissue. And
I got to give everybody on camera, you're going to love this, a full disclosure. Another one of my true stories. I thought, I'd been working out more and I thought I had a hernia. And so I was at the gym and my trainer he was like, I go, touch my belly and tell me if this feels like a hernia. And he poked me and he goes, do you have any pain? And I went, no, because every time I sat up, there would be like a bulge that comes up. And so there was a doctor on the next table. He goes, I can tell you what that is. And I'm like, what? He goes, you're losing weight. You're starting to strengthen your core and your muscles are pushing fat up. I went, oh God. And so he described what you're talking about, intramuscular fat, because he goes, you got to understand, here's your muscle and here's the layer of fat over it. And when you're contracting and pushing that muscle, it's making the fat on top of it push out. And I went, oh God. Okay. I was like, well, so here doing sit-ups and doing everything else, what am I going to do about that? Keep doing what you're doing. Keep eating well. It'll go away. I'm like, so I know specific. Maybe I shouldn't tell TMI, but as soon as you started talking about intramuscular fat, I had to interject that reality.
No, I'm glad you did, because it affects how well the muscle works over time. Yeah. And I mean, not only does it affect your muscles, but it impacts your joints and mobility. Mm-hmm. But the study that showed that wonderful picture there, the study focused on thigh muscles because they play a key role in supporting our knees. And that affects our daily movements, such as walking or standing. And osteoarthritis, Barry, is so prevalent and costly in the global health issue. It actually constitutes one of the largest non-cancer health-related costs in the United States around the world. And it is linked to obesity and our unhealthy lifestyle choices, like ultra-processed foods.
Many times I keep telling people, even when you're not on screen or not doing an interview, about the talk we had probably at this point a year ago, which has changed everything what we do. And that's basically it. And I think you just said it one time. It wasn't even part of talking about the product. It's like, shop the perimeter of the grocery store, in which that's what we've been doing. It has stuck with us ever since you said it and has really helped me and my wife both make healthier choices. So can you explain explain to everybody else how that food that's on, inside the aisles is the ultra processed stuff that leads to that marbling of fat.
Yeah, and it's about 3/4 of the store. Isn't that interesting? And, often when we're thinking about those ultra processed foods, we're thinking about well, maybe not, but there's high amounts of sugar, salt, and unhealthy fats in those things. And it's more than that, Barry. It's also the chemicals they're using. For instance, all of those foods, just about all of them, use hydrogenated oils, including seed oils. What are hydrogenated oils? They heat these oils, these natural oils up to such high temperatures where they turn black. Then they've got to bleach them out so they look normal again. And so you can imagine high heat altering all of that, and how in using bleach, that's not good for us. Modified starches, they do the same thing. Emulsifiers, artificial colorants and flavors, and all these chemicals. And they're, ultra processed foods being high in that sugar and fat and salt. Their danger lies equally in being low in fiber. They don't contain fiber. They take all the fiber out. They lack in nutrients, and they become hyperpalatable.
What does that mean? Okay, you're good.
Yeah, no, hyperpalatable foods are engineered with chemicals to be irresistible, especially you find it in fast foods and ultra-processed foods. It sends these signals to our brain, and it causes us to keep eating. So we overeat. It keeps us addicted to these unhealthy foods, and so we can't lose weight. And
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
no, that's okay.
What it sounds like is that we've got corporations that are giant drug dealers. The drug dealers that have created these products that keep you coming back. And I don't understand. One of the things is that with all the chemicals and processing that they do, how is it that those things are cheaper in terms of at point of sale than the stuff that's actually good for you? It seems like with all the extra processing, with all the extra chemicals and everything else, it would be more expensive than the stuff that on the outside perimeter of the store.
Well, that's a good point. But I think once you invest in all of the machinery that does this stuff, yeah, it's expensive up front, but then it gets less expensive, the longer that it goes in place. And the volume that they sell of these things, because people eat, 41 to 87% of their food every day is ultra processed foods. So people make money when you sell volumes of things. But, you're right. The ultra processed foods industry, it's driven by these commercial forces, and they have a very aggressive marketing, that they do to people and with ads and everything on TV. And they also have a very powerful lobbying force in DC that's shaping our food policy. And
Robin read an article this past weekend, and she forwarded it to me, and it went way back to John Rockefeller. And Rockefeller was a big oil guy, and he found a way to infuse oil products into food, and then he bought the food processing company so he could do it seamlessly, and that was one of the ways they were able to inject all this stuff into the food.
Yeah, and they're also in cahoots with Big Pharma. I mean, it's a vicious cycle of us buying their poisonous food and their drugs. So we have to be the smart ones and break that cycle.
It's really weird when you look at people saying don't eat carbs, don't eat certain food. Then you look at people in certain cultures that do eat those foods. Like you've seen sumo wrestlers that are 400 pounds, and when they're done fighting, they just drop down to 180 pounds. You're watching everybody over in Southeast Asia is a heavy rice eating culture, but you don't see a whole bunch of fat Japanese people. It seems to me like these types of foods are replacing regular meals that are nutritious. What kind of damage is that doing to our bodies, and why is it that people in other cultures can consume food like that without getting overly obese?
Well, first of all, they store it properly, they grow it properly, their soils are healthier than ours over here, they use less chemicals. That's for starters. Plus, they eat slower, they chew their food more than we do. We're gulpers over here. We just in a rush when we gulp, 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 right? So what happens
have you traveled to Japan or some of these countries? A meal may take 2 hours. You know?
Yes, no,
Yeah.
all of my teachers, I taught at the Kushi Institute, and all of my teachers were Japanese
Okay.
or Korean. So I was exposed to all of this, for many, many years, and I've been trying to get over there, but I haven't made it yet. But when we're eating ultra processed foods, we have increased rates of chronic illness, for one. I mean, there's out of 104 long-term studies that were reviewed, 92 reported higher risks of various chronic conditions, and that's including obesity, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, kidney disease, depression, Crohn's disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver, and mortality from all causes. So these are very dangerous substances. I even hate to call them ultra-processed foods. They're substances at this point. And RFK Jr., I don't know if you've seen this, but he just released his first episode of his podcast about fixing America's food system. And he said, and I quote, "The processed foods are making us sick. We now have the highest chronic disease burden in the entire world. And we've gone from spending zero on chronic diseases when my uncle was president in 1960 to spending 4.3 trillion a year. It's the biggest budget in the federal government, and the costs are ruinous. 40 cents out of every taxpayer dollar that we give to the federal government is going to treat diseases that are diet related," unquote.
Did you see what they're doing in New York? Obviously, they're pushing all the socialists and they want to feed the kids, but they had a picture of what they're feeding the kids, and it was absolute slop. And it just drove me crazy. You mentioned RFK Jr.'s podcast 4 weeks ago. Ashley and I had a chance to go up and interview the cabinet, and we got to talk to Dr. Oz. We got to talk to Dr. Marty McCary, and it was like sitting across the table talking to you. They were saying that, and I just want everybody to know, I was talking to the Maha cabinet, and I didn't get to talk to RFK Jr., but they were echoing and underscoring everything that you said, including, all the stuff about kimchi. So I wanted to give you your props with that one.
Well, wow. I feel special. That's very nice of you to do that. Yeah, I've been doing this for over 50 years now, so it's nice to get a pat on the back there, Barry.
Yeah.
And putting me in the presence of all those wonderful people and knowledgeable people. Thank you. That's very nice.
When I was talking to them, I was actually asking them questions that you have answered on the show, because I wanted to have them. I mean, I showed it a couple of weeks ago, especially Marty McCary, and he went right down. I even asked him about fermented food. I asked him about the processed food and everything that he was saying. So the actual people in the cabinet are echoing and underscoring specifically what you said, including, all the stuff about high consumption of sugar. So just wanted to let you know.
Oh, Barry, you're just the sweetest. You made my week. That's really nice of you, But these foods, I'm so excited that we finally have all of these people that are really there for the right reasons and want to actually improve our health and not keep us on that same, hamster wheel that we've been on forever for profit. But these substances, I can't call them foods. I shake when I call these ultra processed things foods. They accelerate our aging. High consumption of the sugar, the processed foods, they are directly destroying our collagen and our elastin, those things that hold us together and keep us upright and give us, a movement. And then that leads to wrinkles with our skin sagging as well. And it also is causing chronic inflammation. And chronic inflammation is at the basis of every single disease out there. That's there when you have a bad microbiome, right? So it's accelerating the breakdown of all of our tissues. And then on top of it, these ultra processed substances produce free radicals. They cause us oxidative stress that then is damaging all of our cells, our DNA, our skin, and then we get premature skin aging. And then, of course, these highly processed substances are drawing they're so loaded up with sodium that they draw water out of our cells. And then what does that do? That dehydrates us, and it makes our skin even more prone to wrinkling. Plus, dehydration is also going to disrupt our ability to be able to digest and eliminate properly, because everything is shrunk down now, and that's throwing up all our systems, including our arteries. Our veins shrink down. Our blood gets thicker. The heart has a harder time pushing dirty blood through all these shrunken veins and arteries. So you're doing so much damage when you're consuming these things, and it is the number one factor in maintaining our health and quality as we age, Barry.
You know, is one of the things I think a lot of people don't realize that, well, if you haven't played sports, you know, hydrating is so important. Whether you're doing yoga, whether you're doing stairmaster stuff, or actually lifting weights, or even like my grandson training for football. And then when you get out of that, just becoming a normal person, hydration becomes almost a afterthought. There's many people who don't realize the things you just mentioned. They don't realize why they're getting sick. They don't understand that they need to be hydrating, and it's being amplified by the stuff that they're actually eating. It's bad enough, you know, we're down here in South Florida, you're over in the Tampa area. It's bad enough the season we're getting into right now. People don't realize you have to continue hydrating, even if you don't feel like you're exerting. I've watched people just drop. And then when you add all the unhealthy food into it, man, it's crazy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the first most important thing we do every day is breathe. We can only go 5 minutes without breathing, and people don't breathe deep enough. And then the second thing is water. And if we don't drink enough water, everything gets knocked out of whack, and our bodies do not operate well, and they won't operate. It's kind of like, you know, you drive your car and your battery has water in it. And when the battery runs out of water, guess what? The electrical positive and negative can't communicate with each other. So you got a dead battery, or you got not a dead, you know, you do have a dead battery, but the same thing in our body. We're electrical beings. We send electrical signaling. And when we are low on water and we're dehydrated, those electric signalings can't operate properly. So it's really, really important that we stay hydrated, just like you said. And again, even the muscles, when we don't have enough hydration, those muscles cramp up and you get cramps and Charlie horses and all kinds of things going on. But yeah, that's very, very important. So, you know, RFK Jr. and the whole Trump administration that's working with him implemented new the 2025-2030 dietary guidelines for Americans. And they've officially recognized kimchi as a health food for the first time, which is really exciting.
You know, I just got to interject here. I was telling people, I went to see Carlos Santana last week, and while we were down in Miami, which is literally a cultural melting pot, one of the few we still have, I drove past, we're in the back of the car, and I look over, and there's this giant store called a Kimchi Mart. I'm like, if it wasn't 11 o'clock at night, I'd have been like, stop the car. I need to go take a picture. And I didn't know what it was. I mentioned it on the show, and somebody looked it up, and they've got like 7 locations all through like the Miami, Hollywood area down here. And it's called Kimchi Mart. I went to send you a picture of it, and I didn't know there were so many different kinds of kimchi. And so when RFK Jr. and you're talking about kimchi, I'm like, I just thought it was the sauerkraut looking stuff, and they got all kinds of stuff. It's amazing. And it's becoming that popular that there's 7 stores here in South Florida. And I'll send you a picture after the show. So
I would love that. I would love to see that. Yeah, that people are smart down there. Obviously, they know what's good for them.
Yeah,
and somebody sees a money-making opportunity here to provide, you know, kimchi to that population down there. But you know, one of the biggest things about kimchi is it combats chronic illness in so many ways. It regulates our immune system. It kind of behaves like, if you will, a precision regulator for the immune system. What that does is it improves the ability of antigen-presenting cells. What are those? These cells actually recognize when antigens come in. Those are pathogens, and they detect it. And then it's kind of like they are the pitcher, and they throw the ball to the catcher, right? And the T cells knock them out. So it really boosts that up, and it prevents excessive damaging inflammation. Those are so important. So it really boosts the antigen cells. Then it drastically improves our cardiovascular health. When you eat kimchi every single day, you get lower blood pressure, reduced triglycerides, lower fasting glucose levels. All of these are going to help prevent heart disease and diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And that's all documented. That's research has been done. And then again, what people are missing in their diets every day is fiber. And kimchi's high in fiber. It's high in probiotics, especially lactic acid bacteria. And what those things do is improve our gut microbiota composition, which now is aiding in proper digestion, and it relieves symptoms of IBS, that's irritable bowel syndrome. And then kimchi's not only high in fiber, but it's low in calories. It aids in our metabolism, and it's shown such potential to reduce our body weight and our body mass index. There's studies out there show that.
That's a nice way of saying, as I mentioned before, it improves your regularity. I'll leave it at that. But it really helps with the stuff that's compacted in there. So I love it, and you're saying it also does something with aging.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's packed. Kimchi's packed with antioxidants like vitamin C, beta carotene, and polyphenols. And those things neutralize the harmful free radicals that cause cellular aging and skin damage. Let me tell you, if you've been eating ultra-processed foodstuffs, you're loaded up with those things. And you're going to age really fast. And it helps reduce chronic low-grade inflammation that's contributing to age-related diseases. And that high vitamin C content aids in collagen production, so it supports skin elasticity and firmness. And then the fermentation-derived bioactive compounds are linked to anti-aging pathways that can enhance our overall longevity. So this powerful food, kimchi, was actually shown in the lab to slow the aging of human cells.
Wow, that's incredible. And I know I have felt so much better myself, just changing something very simple by just shopping differently, eating differently. And then, of course, dealing with the kimchi was just something, an added bonus just from meeting you. So how does it, slow the aging throughout the entire body? I mean, I understand, tell me about that.
Well, if you slow the aging of your cells down, you slow the aging of tissues, and then therefore you're going to slow the aging of the entire body. So it all starts at the cellular level. I've got this story. I think you'll enjoy it. It's about a woman named Maria Moriera, and she lived to be so old. She was a centenarian. I can never pronounce that word. She was over 100 years old.
Wow.
And she was born in 1907, and she lived through 2 world wars. She lived through the Spanish Civil War and the rise of the internet. So you can see how long her life spanned. And she passed away, Barry, at the age of 117 in 2024, and she was documented as the world's oldest verified living person.
Wow.
Yeah, and her life, let me tell you, she didn't have an easy life. As a child, she crossed the Atlantic during wartime, and she actually had a fall and lost hearing in one of her ears, and then she lost her father to tuberculosis. And then later, she got married, she raised 3 children, and she actually worked as a nurse during the Spanish Civil War. And I think, she definitely experienced all kinds of grief and stress and history firsthand, but she stayed engaged with life because she also played the piano until she was 108.
Wow.
And she adapted to new technology even despite her hearing loss. And then what was interesting is after her death, the researchers decided to examine her gut microbiome. And they were amazed because remarkably, it looked unusually youthful. It was balanced, it was resilient, and it was very rich in microbial diversity. And she had eaten a healthy diet, and she regularly consumed fermented foods. And this is nothing complicated. She just had steady habits over decades. But when scientists looked at other centenarians, people who lived to be over 100, they found a similar pattern with these people. They had greater microbial diversity. They had a more balanced gut ecosystem. And that diversity is linked to better immune function, better metabolic health, and even brain support.
Wow.
And I think Maria's story suggests something very powerful, that aging well may not just be about your genes or your luck of the draw, but it's about protecting this whole ecosystem that's inside each and every one of us. Because if you really think about it, longevity isn't just adding years, it's maintaining the quality of those years. And a diverse, resilient gut is undoubtedly the strongest indicator of how well you're truly aging.
Have you seen, I have to forward it to you if you haven't, there was another interview with RFK Jr. and it was a panel of people just asking him questions, and I asked him, tell us really what you eat. And he's basically at this point pure carnivore and fermented foods. Carnivore, just eating meat and eating kimchi. And I guess he and his wife, or whoever he has as his chef, have come up with novel ways of making the meals more, exciting, so it's not the same thing every day. But to what you just said in terms of how Maria lives her life, he's living it right now.
Yeah, and kimchi really is proven to be the best thing that you can consume to increase that microbial diversity, because it's the only fermented food, Barry, that contains over 900 unique strains of beneficial bacteria. I mean, you cannot compare kimchi to any other fermented foods. Fermented foods are good, but you can't compare it to any other fermented food or synthetic probiotic supplements, because it is like a full ecosystem package. It contains far more unique microbial strains. For instance, you mentioned sauerkraut. Right. It only has 28 strains, Barry. Right. Kimchi's got 900. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that one. And it also contains prebiotics, which is what the probiotics use as food. That's the fiber. And then the postbiotics are the helpful compounds that the bacteria produce during fermentation, like organic acids and bioactive metabolites. And that combination truly matters, because the probiotics often struggle to colonize, or they may even have a problem surviving if the gut environment isn't supportive. And another thing that happens as we age is we become much more susceptible to the microbial threats, the invaders like pathogens, parasites, funguses, bacteria, overgrowth of yeast. But kimchi helps you fight these things off. And it also helps you fight off viruses like the flu. There was a recent study that found that kimchi can actually slow down the growth of the common flu virus. So think about that rather than going and getting maybe a shot, maybe just eat some kimchi, for gosh sakes. A big reason for that is how it supports your immune system. Because remember, I know I've told you this before, but 70 to 80% of your immunity is housed in your gut. And that's so important.
Now, I just got over a cold myself, and it's still in my throat and nasal cavity to a certain extent, but I did notice I got over it much quicker. I never had a fever, had a little bit of nasal stuff, but pretty much I noticed that, and it's my annual cold. I get the same cold every single year, but this time it moved much faster. I mean, in fact, I don't think I missed the show. I felt that good. So, I will completely ring the bell on that one, what you just said. So,
well, that's good. And you know what? Another thing is, thanks for sharing that with us, because it's always great information. But I wanted to also say, during the early days, people remember COVID-19 back then, South Korea had such a much lower death rate compared to every other country. And some researchers actually pointed out, Korea's high daily intake of kimchi may have played a role. Because kimchi is so packed with these bioactive compounds and probiotics, it may make it harder for these viruses to enter our human cells. And the same thing also was noticed during the 2003 SARS outbreak, when South Korea reported 0 deaths, Barry. Wow. And again, the researchers looked at kimchi's antiviral and probiotic properties as the determining factor. And did you know that South Koreans actually live 5 to 6 years longer than we do in the United States?
I didn't know, but I could see that, and just in terms of You don't see many fat people walking around in South Korea. I mean, you just don't see it. No matter what they're eating, you got to look at them and go, they're doing something right over there.
Yeah, and their skin is gorgeous. The women, it's called glass skin. It's just beautiful skin over there as well. So it really reflects, that healthy gut. And kimchi has such powerful antifungal properties because, again, it's rich in beneficial bacteria like Lactobacillus plantarum and Lactobacillus sakei. And as kimchi ferments, these bacteria produce natural compounds that make it really hard for the molds and yeast to grow in our bodies. And in lab studies, certain strains that they found in kimchi have reduced the growth of harmful molds like aspergillus by up to 97%. This is phenomenal. And they basically create an unfriendly environment that the fungi can't grow in. I mean, we are eating a lot of foods, especially grains, that have aspergillus molds on them. So it's really important that we understand that and combat that. And kimchi's probiotics as well, they've shown activity against candida. That's a common yeast that can overgrow, and many, many Americans have that because we've been taking so many antibiotics. You can get it in other ways too, overeat sugar and things, but antibiotics play a huge role. And so the antibiotics wipe out your good bacteria and as well as the bad bacteria. And you have to put that good bacteria back in. And fermented foods like kimchi help rebuild that protective layer and allow for that environment so those good bacteria can come back and grow. And these same functions, Barry, are why kimchi possesses such powerful antiparasitic and antibacterial properties.
I wanted to ask you this question too. And it's late April. We're about to head into the summer months. Hopefully people will be traveling. They will be enjoying the summer. The traditional sit-down dinner, if there is such a thing anymore, is going to be even less for the next couple months. It's hot. People are at the beach. They're out there doing different things. What can we, people do in terms of understanding how to eat well during the summer? Because number one, you got to stay hydrated. Number two, you still got to stop eating crap. Even if you're at a barbecue, you got to look at the certain things that you can eat. Don't load up on potato salad or macaroni salad. Grab the meat, and then, if you're lucky enough to have some people cooking kimchi, it could really help you with everything.
Well, yeah, I mean, you eat smarter. In the summer, you need foods that are water-filled. Eat watermelon, eat fruits and vegetables. Change your diet up and make sure they're organic. Pick them right off the tree in some places and eat them. But yeah, the whole thing is about making smarter choices. And, right. Bring a jar of kimchi with you, and, have that. And, the global food system is so messed up, and we know that we're not going to change that overnight. Right. But we can control our daily patterns. Just make small little decisions every day, steady decisions that compound over time, and get those unique strains of bacteria from kimchi into your gut every day. That's the best way to start. And the whole thing here is people, even if they love kimchi, it's not something that's easy to consume every day. Right. I happen to love kimchi. I've been eating kimchi over the last 50 years. But for most people, they're not going to eat it every day. So this is why we created Kimchi One. And what is Kimchi One? Kimchi One, we've taken kimchi and we use a cold process drying method that's going to retain all of that fiber, that prebiotic, and the nutrition of the actual fermented kimchi. And then we put it in convenient capsules that are vegan, and that way it's easy for Americans to use. They're used to taking capsules, right? Also, if you buy store-bought kimchi, it's higher in sodium. If you make it yourself, it's high in sodium. So if you're on sodium-restricted diets, we virtually have no sodium in our capsules. We've taken most of the sodium out. And it's 100% made in the USA, non-GMO, and all natural.
Wow. I guess if you went to the kimchi mart that I'm going to send you the picture of, you've got to bring it home and cook. They might have a pre-cooked section like most grocery stores have, but unless you're going to fly to South Florida, you're going to need something like Kimchi One.
Exactly. And the thing too is if you cook kimchi, you're going to destroy all the beneficial things in there. You add it at the very end. And so, you literally eat it as a fermented food that's not cooked, because
Right.
every time you add heat, you're going to destroy some of those things. But Barry, I wanted to share with you, we have so many people that call us in a week or two or three after they start taking the Kimchi One capsules. And they've got so much success with people that had digestive problems and bloating, and you could not go out on the town and enjoy life because they had problems.
Yeah.
And they're finally regular now. And people that had problems where they were getting sick all the time, their immune system was so weak and down, they're not getting sick anymore. Or like you, they're getting their sickness is lasting less and it's not as intense. And people who experience chronic fatigue, which if you eat ultra processed foods, let me tell you, that's aiding and abetting your fatigue every day. They've got energy again because they're putting those good guys back into the gut, and they're shoring up that good microbiome with these kimchi, not over 900 different unique strains.
Right.
And people that have diabetes, that are struggling with their blood sugar or their blood pressure even, and their weight, they experience such dramatic changes, it blows your socks off.
We have so many people. I've had some trolls in our show, and they're like, Barry, why are you doing these infomercials? And I'm like, it's not an infomercial. It's informative. It's educational. And then what I love is how many people in our audience, in the Fanfare family, have talked about them using kimchi. They never used it before, and almost unanimous it's been, we're getting good results from it, and rather quickly. So I urge people, and the reason why I talk to Kim and work with Brightcore is because I actually do it myself. I don't like talking too much about products that I don't use or get a benefit. And the other day I had a tighter shirt on, and somebody goes, Barry, you're looking kind of fit there. I'm like, well, thank you. I'm working hard at it, and a lot of it has to do with what we're doing, talking to you today. So does Brightcore have a special offer for the Fanfare family today?
Yes, especially after, you complimented me so nicely. I'm going to give you a special. Of course I am. So you can go to brightcore.com/Barry and use the code Barry to get 25% off your order. Or you can call 888-418-6738, and we're going to give you up to 50% off your order plus free shipping. And the first 100 callers are going to get a free bottle of Fortify when they order. So our Fortify really helps in what we've been talking about, those thighs that look like, pieces of meat. The Fortify contains you've got it right there. Fortify contains all 9 essential amino acids that are going to protect you against cellular damage, help retain muscle mass, which we lose as we age, and when we eat those ultra processed foods, and is also going to boost your hormone production and support brain chemistry. So remember, Barry's audience out there, that you're only going to get the best discounts and that free bottle of Fortify when you call 888-418-6738. And we love talking to you, so call us.
So yeah, I actually take it, and one of the things that you were saying that was really important, and I think people have to understand, it's not, like I said, I don't look at this as an infomercial. I look at it as giving you info to use something. And you mentioned muscle mass, and I think a lot of people, no matter what your age, a lot of people start thinking, I can't get muscle mass. Muscle mass is one of the most important things for you to maintain or try to develop, even as you age, because it really helps with everything else that you've been saying about kimchi. And I've really been looking at a couple guys that have been talking about people over 60, and they've mentioned kimchi as well. So, everything you're saying, it aligns with what I've been actually experiencing. And that's where I think the difference between a infomercial and telling you, hey, this actually works, it can help you. I know the demographics of the people who watch my show, and it's really important if you're going to be around for a while, because I keep seeing people in the audience say, my husband used to watch you and he's passed on. My wife used to watch you and she's passed on. And I'm putting this stuff out there to hope that you don't pass on. You do whatever we can to live a healthy life. So, Kim, I thank you very much for everything you've done over the last year for myself and my wife as well, in addition to other people who have used your products. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. I've tried to, educate people over 50 years, and it gives me great joy to hear that, it makes a difference.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. God bless you.